Hey guys, this is a video about my Dengfu E10. I'm a member of a Facebook group that mainly deals with Dengfu bicycles, and there are a lot of people on there discussing Dengfu E10s and E82s and other Dengfu bikes. But the other day I saw where a gentleman had posted a build sheet for an E82 he had just completed. And when I looked at the details of his build sheet, he provided quite a bit of information. And it was a really nice build on the bike. And I was convinced from looking at it that the way he built his bike and the way I built out my bike were almost completely different. And what I thought was it would be great to have a video showing and highlighting those differences, because if you're thinking about building one of these bikes, comparing and contrasting his build and my build will give you a real idea of the range of possibilities. So let's get to it. Okay, so these are real life bike builds, and the gentleman who had posted his bike build out on the Facebook user group, his name is Matt, and I've talked to Matt, and Matt has given me permission to share the information I'm sharing here today. But in the top right of this screen, I'm showing Matt's build. According to his bill sheet, he has $8,472 into the bike. And down below in green, I'm showing my bike build, and I have $4,825 into my build. The bikes are almost identical, except his is a long travel version of my bike. Now, here is the details. At the top of the page, I'm showing my bike and the build of $4,825. And down in the bottom is Matt's build of $8,472. And I'm showing how you reconcile by component group between our two builds. So the plus sign means that Matt spent more on his than I spent on mine. So in the wheels, he has $820 more into it. His drivetrain, he has $780 more. His brakes, he has $660 more. His shock, he has $300. Cassette, $265. Bar stem, $245. And other $577, getting to the $842. Now let's go into each of these components. So the wheels, which are made up of the hubs, rims, spokes, nipples, taps, valves, and the cap. On my bike, I have a total of $330 into that. And Matt has $1,150. $350 of that is that he used extremely high-end, very nice, very precision-made Hope hubs, whereas I purchased off AliExpress Cruiser hubs, and the difference in the price in those hubs is $350. Also, he used a carbon Nexty rim, and I'm using an alloy-based WTB HTZ offset rim, and the difference in price in those rims is about $200. I'm using tubes along with Tannis armor, but he decided to go tubeless, and the difference between the tubeless and the tubes is about $50. Also, I was able to build my own wheels and do a DIY, but he had his professionally built. And this is probably a very rough estimate, but I estimate he has about $220 in that professional build versus the DIY. So that's what accounts for the differences in the wheels. On the drivetrain, my drivetrain is about as low budget as you can get and still be a decent drivetrain. And some people might not even think it's that decent. But anyway, I have $120 in my drivetrain, and for comparable components, Matt has $900. The major difference is that he uses a SRAM X01 derailleur, and I'm using a Shimano Dior 11-speed derailleur. The difference is $355. The next major difference, mine is a cable-actuated shifting. His is SRAM wireless, and the difference in those two is $350. He has a SRAM XO chain, and I have a KMC X9, which is $75. So those are the items that primarily account for the differences in our drivetrains. Regarding the brakes, I have $300 into my brakes and rotors on my bike, and he has $960. Now the difference here is he has Hope Tech V4 brakes and rotors, and I'm using Magura Trail Sport brakes and Magura MDR-P rotors. And the difference in price for those brakes is $660. On the rear shock, I have a $440 into my rear shock, which is a Jade X, a DVO Jade X coil shock, and the $440 is the shock and the coil. Matt went with a RockShox Vivid Air, and the difference in price in his rear shock and my rear shock is $300. So he has about $740 in the rear shock. With regard to the cassette, my cassette cost $25 off AliExpress. It's an HG-based AliExpressed and sourced 9-speed cassette. And he has one of the best cassettes you can get, a SRAM 12-speed. And the difference in price in those two is $265. So I have $25 into my cassette, and he has $290. With the bars, stems, and bolts, basically I have a Zito stem and a Spank Race 800 bar, $85 in those two. Matt went the other way. He purchased a Hope bar and a Hope stem. I'm sorry, a one-up bar and a Hope stem. And instead of the standard bolts, he uses titanium bolts on his stem. So he's $330 into the bar, stems, and bolts, a $245 difference. Now, there are several other areas, sort of nits and gnats here that I'll go into that account for the rest of the difference. For the other items on the bike, $3,525 for me, $4,102 for him. With regard to the purchasing the motor, the Dengfu frame, and the battery, which all comes from China, his only cost $100 more. Now, his frame is a Dengfu E82, a newer, probably more popular frame. He also has a Bafang M560 motor. Mine's a Bafang M510 motor, and his battery is 1,008 watt hours versus an 840 watt hours for mine. So even though he's paying $100 more, he's probably getting more than $100 worth of stuff in that bike. That just results from what's happened to the demand for mountain bikes between the time he bought his and bought mine. There's only $100 difference in the fork, but both of us have very good forks on the front of our bike. His is a Zeb fork with a runt in it, and mine is a Lyric fork with a Sakis on it. So once you consider all of that, there's only $100 difference in the forks. On the chain ring, and he has a chain, a more expensive Hope chain ring, and he also has a upgraded jockey wheel on the derailleur, and that difference is about $100. The dropper and saddles are relatively comparable, but he has a Hope clamp that he bought, but the difference in the dropper, the saddle, and the Hope clamp is about $100. The pedals, he has some flat, pretty high-end aluminum pedals on his bike, and I have Shimano SPD clip-on pedals, so about $100 difference in those. And then there's another miscellaneous, approximately about $100, $77, that accounts for the difference in the bikes. So anyway, I think that should give you a pretty good feel of what the differences are, the details anyway. And hopefully you can see that his bike, he went one route where basically he's buying some very high-end, very nice components on that bike. And I went the other way where much of my stuff is sourced from AliExpress and is not quite the level of quality probably that he is. But anyway, I hope I've given you guys something to think about. And like I said, hopefully Matt and I shortly here will be doing another video where we discuss more of the details as to why we went the different ways on these components. But in the meantime, I'll see you at the top.